you really want your web page to be a lead generator for you, and not just a billboard. So you want to kind of walk the audience through that process. All right, welcome to Masters in Fitness Business Podcast, where you get to stand on the shoulders of giants. And on today's show, I have a giant in person from the great city of Milwaukee, CT Kaupp. And is that, did I say that right?
Yeah.
Okay. And CT, he helped me redesign my website. He gave it that new slick look that you see. If you haven't checked it out, go to trainerjim.net. It's really slick. I'm really happy with it. And we'll put together a newsletter as well. He's helping me with the content for that. And he's on a layover here in St. Louis. So when we picked him up in the airport, we had breakfast, and now we're recording a podcast. So welcome to St. Louis, and welcome to the show, CT.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So like I was saying, CT reached out to me, and because he has that's his business, is building and managing websites, and he specializes in the fitness niche. And so he reached out to me, and we were talking, and I said, well, I need a website update. Let me give you a test run. And I've been really pleased with his work. So I wanted to have him on to talk about just websites and some of the things that you've run into in building website, and kind of your background and all of that good stuff. So why don't you tell the listeners, or share with the listeners, like, your background, how you got started in web design and all that good stuff?
Sure. So I was always interested in it kind of my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
And as I went through college, I was big in radio. I went to school for radio, TV, film. That was my major. I wanted to do sports radio. And as my time there was ending, I got more and more into the web. And then my dad owned an advertising agency for 30 plus years. And 6 months prior to me graduating, the web was just starting to take off, or them creating websites and all the different marketing aspects that come with it for clients. And so he wanted to make sure that they were doing them right. And so I had a web guy, and then I came on board and essentially was his assistant, and just helped build up that web portfolio from about 5 sites to 60 that we fully managed, and did all the ongoing marketing efforts as well. And so I built up this expertise, and then wanted to start my own business, and started in 2017.
Okay. And then take us through, like, I know that your dad passed away about the same time as mine did, almost like right around 3 years ago. And it was fairly sudden. And then that kind of sparked your desire or passion kind of go off on your own. You want to walk us through that?
Sure. So about a year before he was diagnosed, he had a glioblastoma brain tumor. So about a year before he was diagnosed, I started freelancing on the side, really loved it. And obviously, since it was just a side thing and just, little times here and there, I could still see the flexibility that life could, that kind of lifestyle, having a job or career in that area could provide. And so I got more and more into it. And as he was diagnosed and he passed away 62 days later, and in that time frame, I talked to him and said, hey, I'm going to go on my own. I'm going to essentially be a freelance web guy. But then between the time that he passed and then the next 6 months, and when I made the leap to start, he really passed on an entrepreneurial spirit, because it's not just a freelance thing. It's a business. You have to treat it that way, and you have to be really disciplined and motivated to keep trucking along. There's always going to be bumps in the road, and you can plan all you want beforehand, but you don't know until you're knee deep in it, and it's the bullets are flying for real, and then you got to navigate.
Yeah, Admiral Nemesis, and I use this quote all the time, but he was the admiral that was in charge of the fighting in the South Pacific in World War II. And he said, no battle plan survives contact with the enemy, meaning shit always goes wrong, or or stuff happens that you didn't foresee, and you have to pivot on the fly, for sure. And when you have your own business, that is definitely true. So one of the things that I like is that that's different about you from other web guys and website designers, is that you come out and see your clients. So You started out in New York. You saw 3 clients up there, or 2 clients and a potential client. And then now you have a layover here in St. Louis, so you're coming to see me. So when you go see clients, which is really unusual because you can do all of your work remotely. So A, why do you think it's important to go see your clients? And B, like, what does that accomplish for you and your clients when you go see them face to face?
Sure. So to me, it's really been my goal from day one, was to provide an extremely personal, one-on-one attention kind of service that was unique to the space. Because like you said, I can do everything remote. I don't, I could be in another country for all you know. It doesn't really matter to you. You just want the work done.
Right.
But I learned from my dad the importance of relationships, and I wanted to take it up a notch and to be able to build those deep relationships, whether it's professional or personal. I'm just the type of person that wants that deep, genuine, authentic connection. And I think that's probably why we drive so well initially. And so that it's really just to keep building on that as I go. And it's really important for me to be able to mix the personal and the professional, because I really believe that work-life balance is just a myth. And so it's really just one life. That's how I look at it. And so whether, this morning I'm in the airport and I'm updating your website, and I freaking love it. And people could think that's crazy, but like, to me, that's just the way it is.
Yeah, I do envy you that you can work from literally anywhere. And I agree with you. There is no work-life balance. It's all life. And so it's just, and balance is not a static thing. It's dynamic, right? So there are times when you got to spend more energy and time in one area of your life and not so much in others, and vice versa. So I agree with you there. So when you go see your clients, like you saw a couple of clients up in New York and a potential client. So what are the benefits that come out of those meetings, those face-to-face meetings for you and them?
I think it takes a relationship up tenfold. We've had the video chats, we've had the phone chats, but to see somebody face to face and have that connection, especially in this day and age, I feel like it just emphasizes everything that I'm about, and it makes it it's concrete.
Okay, gotcha. All right. So it just solidifies that rapport and relationship. I gotcha. All right. So we covered like your background, what got you into building websites. We talked a little bit about what your kind of 5-year plan is, or in a perfect world. So we also talked about like a lot of stuff about websites over breakfast. So we talked about like when I went to you for a website for the podcast, and I'm like, I don't care. I just wanted to look professional. I wanted to look slick. I wanted to be user friendly, all of that stuff. Do you find that a lot when you get a new client, is that they basically don't care what it looks like as long as it gets what they want done?
Yeah, no, you were unique in the sense that you were very hands off. And I would say that, I have the full spectrum. Some clients wanted really hands on, and hey, I like this site and this site, and I want it to look like this, or I want to use this. And I would say you were the completely opposite of that. But I'm so agile that it doesn't really matter to me. I can be flexible and work in any regard. And it was really fun doing your site, because anytime I came to you with an update, you're like, yeah, that looks awesome. That looks awesome. That looks awesome. And I'm like, heck yeah, that's why I'm doing this.
Yeah.
And so it was really, really fun.
Okay, awesome. And then we talked about like, so you hire out to contractors. You have like a guy, James, that helps you, and then what's the copyright? Kim. So we were talking like you go to, especially in the fitness space, fitness industry and the studio industry specifically, you get a lot of trainers that jump into the business arena, and you see their websites and they're beautiful and they're slick and snazzy, but they don't have any call to action. There's no painfully obvious call to action. When you go to the bio or about page, it's about the length of a research paper, that no one is going to read. Same thing when it comes to services. They offer like anywhere from 6 to 12 different services, and there's no clear call to action or any of those services. You want to cover that conversation that we had this morning?
Sure. Yeah, I would start with, let's just go with the services for a second. I see a lot of studios that will just have the smorgasbord of services on one page. And Google really wants you to have like one individual page for each service that you offer, and you can get really granular with that.
Hmm.
Usually it's one page with, 3 sentences per service, and that really isn't going to give you, not to get too technical, but from like a Google sense, not going to really give you much juice. You really want to, compartmentalize those out and then have an individual page that talks to it and have testimonials just on that particular service. And like from a homepage standpoint, like we were talking about, the call to action is huge. Make it painfully obvious, regardless of whatever device they're on, however they're coming to find you, and even just throughout your site, you want to have that consistent call to action. So it's not, one time you're talking about this new client special, and the next time you're saying sign up for this, and then grab my ebook, and you want to be able to give a consistent user experience throughout. And it really, I always talk about friction too. Like you don't, the least amount of friction possible. And
Yeah.
so anytime there's any sense of friction, they're gone in the site.
Yeah, they'll abandon for sure. So let's talk about that. So what are some of the aspects or concepts that you need to have like a painfully obvious? Well, first of all, let's backpedal in that when they come to you, they should already know what services they want to offer, what their demographic is, and what their messaging should be. And then you can help them craft it. If they come to you with that, then it's easier to craft that, design that web page, correct?
Sure. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And if you need help with that, I'm happy to help.
Mm-hmm.
I can kind of help in any regard
Mm-hmm.
that way. But yeah, the more that you come to me with, and the more defined everything is from the start, will make the process of creating it that much easier.
Yeah. And so we talked this morning about if everybody's your client, then nobody's your client. So you really have to drill down into a niche and maybe offer like 2 to 3 services instead of 6 to 12.
Yeah, I've heard it described to me as like a double niche.
Mm-hmm.
So sure, like maybe you specialize in fat loss,
Mm-hmm.
but maybe it's actually for brides, and that's or brides to be, and that's your specific niche, or it's 50 plus, whatever that area is. That is going to make the website 1,000 times more powerful, because then anybody that isn't in that demographic is not your client anyways,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's going to repel them, and then or vice versa. If it is they're right in their sweet spot, then they're going to resonate with everything that you're talking about.
Got it. That makes total sense. So that's one way that you can make your website stand out. What are some other ways that you can make your website stand out?
I would say the consistent call to action. I see too many that are all over the board. And so I'm always talking about above the fold. So on the homepage,
I hear that a lot. What does that mean?
So that just means that when a person pulls up, let's just say homepage with that, or with that, when somebody pulls up that homepage, what they see immediately, that means above the fold.
Gotcha. Okay.
So regardless if you're on desktop, tablet, mobile, I want, new client special or whatever it is that you want your user to take action on to make that prominent.
Okay, got it.
So I usually say 2 to 3 times on the homepage, and then 1 to 2 times on each internal page. And again, consistent across the board.
And then is it better to have kind of a minimal above the fold homepage, or do you want lots of bells and whistles?
Yeah, I'd say you want to streamline it as best as possible. Video is so huge and everybody wants to use video, but I've sort of have a love-hate relationship with it because it's going to make your website load slower. And so it might not be ideal for mobile devices, but just in general, you want it to be engaging. You want to be able to personalize it to your studio. So most cases, you don't want to buy the stock photography. You want to be able to have pictures of your instructors, teaching and doing the different workouts and whatever that is specialized to your studio, versus it being stock and just general. You're not going to be able to create that emotion and that feel if it's just like everybody else's.
Gotcha. All right. Then that definitely makes sense. So a minimum what's the word? Minimal homepage, pretty bare, It, for me, I liken it to like you want them to participate rather than just consume, because it's a lot. I see a lot of people that want to put all these fancy, well-produced videos, probably very expensive videos on their web page for people to watch. But realistically, most people never watch the video. They never even click the play versus like some like picture along with a few words of copy and a call to action. Book here to click here to book your starting point session, something like that. I think that's more effective at generating leads and generating business than a slick, fancy web page. Do you find that to be true?
Yeah, I like to think about it like a landing page, to be honest with you. It's really making everything as streamlined as possible. I would say above the fold on the homepage, I like headline, subhead, call to action button. And then below that, then you can put your content. Now, I would say that with a caveat that I feel like everybody tries to put everything on their homepage. So then it's craziness. You have a lot going on. You have a bunch of content. And people are probably not going to read all of that as great as you think the content is. So I like to make sure that, then as you scroll down, it's nice scannable pieces of content that they can consume. So it's headline, subhead, maybe a different color to distinguish those. And then you have some shorter paragraphs of text. And you can have different sections, and we have some testimonials and things like that, or success stories to build that social proof. But making sure that they can easily scan it. And if you do it that way, it's going to work well on every device. I'm always thinking, how is that end user gonna engage with the content? And obviously everything's going mobile, so there's part of me that always is thinking that way. And if you do it right for mobile, then it's just going to fall into place for the other device sizes as well.
Yeah, and I can't overemphasize that enough, because I see lots of stats on like how people view your page, and you can pull that up too. And I think it's like 90% mobile.
Yeah, it can be dependent on industry and all that, but I've been seeing more mobile as well.
Okay. Yeah, so you definitely want it to be mobile friendly. So let's back up. When you're talking about content, that's where having a copywriter comes in handy, because it can streamline and also create a story instead of just rambling facts, as you said so well, just a brain dump where people feel like they're like literally reading like some kind of research dissertation, versus like some kind of catchy copy or a story that people can remember. You want to share a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So working at my dad's agency, we would usually give the client the option, hey, we can write the copy for you, or if you'd like to write it, you can write it. And what I came to realize in that process was that if the client decided to write it, it was going to take us about 6 to 12 months longer to launch the website, because it's always going to be put on the back burner. It's never going to be, it's not really their specialty. So it just kind of keeps getting put down the list and pushed down. And so to have a professional be able to write the copy the correct way, to have the emotions, to craft that story, to be able to be engaging and catch their attention, you could do side by side. You could have the same amount of content just as one big block versus headline, subhead, and then some nice shorter paragraphs. And that's always going to be much more effective and easier to read.
Yeah, more digestible.
Yeah,
for the end user. I agree. Okay, and then let's talk about I'm trying to remember, because when we were talking at breakfast, I'm thinking to myself, man, we got to save this for the show because this is good. But I was sharing with you how most of the time it's a trainer that opens up a studio, and then they have to learn how to run a business, right? And so everybody thinks, okay, I got to get a web page, and they just want their web page to look slick and cool and everything else. And it's just one of those things where you have to make that lens shift from trainer to business owner, because you really want your web page to be a lead generator for you and not just a billboard. So you want to kind of walk the audience through that process?
Yeah, no, I'm really transparent up front with any client that I have to, or prospective client, where I want them to know we're going to create this great looking website. It's going to work on every device, but it's not going to bring in 30 new clients next month. it's much more of a longer term play.
Mm-hmm.
And I really believe in the search engine optimization. So when people are searching for your studio in St. Louis and surrounding areas, that it comes up where it should be. And there's different tactics that we can take to try to get the website to show up in surrounding areas too. And so I have a lot of experience in that realm. And you always just want to. I think just in society in general, we want the instant gratification, and you own your website. So if Facebook goes down tomorrow, Instagram goes down tomorrow, everything that you had on there or the ads you're running, is gone. And so it's really, hey, you own this website. Let's make it the best it can be. Create that foundation, lay that great foundation, and then over time, just keep building that online presence to be the best that it can be. And that way, if something gets turned off, if this marketing thing isn't working, you want to go this other direction, you already have this foundation laid.
Yeah, couple of great points you made in there. One is that whatever you have on your website, you own, because a lot of people want to go the low budget route, and they may be bootstrapping, starting from scratch. But they want to start a Facebook page because it's easy, it's free. But as we said, you don't own any of the content on your Facebook page. And that's important to know, because if Facebook goes down or goes away or Instagram goes away, then you got bupkis, right? So if you have a web page, you own all of the content that you can also link. You can use to post on Facebook and link it back to your web page. So that's an important thing to know. And Tim Lyons talks about that as well, as how it's important to have that web page so that you can have ownership of all of that. So if anything short of the internet and Skynet, then you still have that internet going down or Skynet taking over, you still have all that content. But I think it's also important to realize that in order to optimize your website for lead gen, then it has to be part of your overall strategy. Like say you should have lots of things driving traffic. You should have your social media driving traffic to your website. You should have your emails driving traffic to your website. You should have any other type of marketing driving traffic to your website. And then once they get on your website, then the call to action should be painfully obvious. And then they click, you capture their information, you make the offer, whatever, they book. So I think and then you have to have a strategy or a process for handling those leads when they come in. So it's not just, let's just put up a website, put a call to action button on there, and then wait for the clients to start coming through the door. You have to have it tied into your overall strategy. And you want to share with the listener some of the ways your more successful clients have done that?
Yeah, I would say, it's all, you have to be proactive, and it's all part of a bigger mix. The website can be the foundation, but you can still run your Facebook ads. You can still run this promo. You can still use this other marketing tool. It's not this or that. And so I feel like I see that a lot, where the mindset is, I don't need a website, or I don't invest in my website because I got this, that, or the other thing. When in reality, it should be everything working together. It's just one piece of the pie.
Right. Yeah. And I had Colin McGarity on a long time ago, and he runs a super successful club up in New Hampshire, Seacoast Kettlebell. But he's also really good at an overall digital marketing strategy, in that he ties everything back to his website, and he gets just a ridiculous amount of leads through his websites as a result of it. And what I mean by that is that every Facebook ad that he runs, it has a link to his website. Every thing, he puts a blog post, and then he uses that blog post to post on social media that then links back to his website. And everything that he does, he sends out emails, recipes, newsletters, everything links back to his website. And then he has a very simple, very minimal website, but with a clear call to action that gets him leads. And then once he gets that lead, then he has a process for handling that lead, so none of them fall through the cracks.
Yeah, that's what we were talking about this morning, how important it is to have that process. It's like you can have everything set up, but then if it takes you 6 hours to respond to them, and they've already heard from 3 other gyms, well, you're not even you're long gone in their memory.
Right. Yeah. But and I want to get into that, but I want to backtrack because I'm curious and satisfy my own curiosity here, folks, because it is my podcast. But SEO, I've heard doesn't matter. It matters a lot. Where is that? Like SEO, like how much does that matter? How much does that impact? And what are some of the things that you do to maximize SEO? SEO is search engine optimization. So when people search for personal trainers, you want to come up first, right?
Yeah. So I think, it's your business is the asset. And so you want to make sure that that business and that asset is as good as it can be. And by doing SEO correctly, they call it like white hat or black hats, like the nasty spam kind of tricky stuff, or like tricking Google. But at the end of the day, it's not gonna do you any good. You want to make sure that you're doing things white hat correctly, and you just keep building that up. And so you're investing in it in the short term. In the long term, it'll pay for you. And it's not going to if you pay for a Google ad or Facebook ad, you turn off tomorrow, the ads are gone. You don't get anything from that.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas SEO, it's always going to be working for you, and organically, the juice that you've built up, let's put it that way, will continue to serve you versus it just being kaput and it's a light switch, it's off, and then you get nothing from it. So I think it's very, very important. I think the voice, search capabilities it'll be interesting to see how that plays out, which is people doing searching more from the voice side. But for any kind of brick and mortar, I would put it that way, it's extremely important.
Okay, so I imagine Google is like Facebook, where they're constantly changing their algorithms on the SEO side. So how do you stay ahead of that, and how does that work?
Yeah, I have a partner that I work with that specifically does the SEO side. So we work together at my dad's agency, and my big thing is I know websites inside and out, and I want to be able to give my clients the best of the best at every turn, and we can be much more agile than a big agency. One of the Pilates studios that I'm working with, she wanted to kind of tweak her messaging, her strategy, and we were able to jump on a call within a week, get things more in line with how she wanted to do that. And it was like, that's why I'm doing what I'm doing, to be able to provide that really personalized support and agile and quick to respond to that kind of thing versus, I've heard the horror stories of taking weeks to respond, and that's not how I roll.
Okay, so your guy at the or your person at the advertising agency keeps you kind of updated and stays on top of that SEO work. That's what he does.
Yeah. So we worked for my dad, and then we both started our own businesses at the same time.
Okay.
So it's really his expertise is SEO, and mine is the web, and so we tag team a lot of sites together. Yeah, and Google is always changing. I've done a lot of work in the HVAC space from a time at my dad's agency, and they're really changing how if you're searching for a plumber or whatever it might be, that there's a big ads section now that's in that like contractor space. That's really interesting, and it most likely will be coming to all industries at some point, but it's kind of been rolled out there in the beginning stages. So yeah, he's always staying abreast and staying on top of all the different changes that come about.
Gotcha. And that's important because that's much more effective, because I know my site was a WordPress site, still is, but there's like a widget that you can add for SEO optimization. So your guy's a little bit more efficient than that?
Yes. So it may be a plugin that you're referencing,
right? Yeah.
Called Yoast by SEO. If anybody uses WordPress and has dabbled in their website, they may have seen that or added that to their site. And that's essentially just a tool, and then you can tweak it and configure and do some things within it. And then it helps to be able to optimize your site better from an SEO standpoint. Okay,
but your guy does a better job than the plugin.
Yeah. I mean, we want it. You want to use it because it really helps. But just adding it isn't gonna. Okay,
you got to know how to use it. Gotcha. Okay. Now let's get back to what we were talking about. You were talking about designing a website for a plumber. And usually when people are looking for a plumber, it's because they got water running uncontrollably somewhere in their house and they're freaking out, right? So they're gonna want the first one that comes up, and they're gonna want as little friction as possible, because they want to take care of this problem right away. And then I was sharing with you how that also translates really well to the fitness industry, because usually when people are searching for a personal trainer, they're shopping. And so they're probably calling 2 or 3 numbers that come up on their search, or reaching out to 2 or 3 studios that are on their search engine. And it's really the studio that engages them and gets back to them first, that usually wins 9 times out of 10. So it's really important to have that call to action, least amount of friction, all of that stuff. So, but I was also talking about how I think social media has made people lazy. And I get on, yes, I'm on my soapbox, in that they want the website to do all of that for them. They want the website to generate the lead, maybe do an automatic follow up, either text or email to the lead, or chatbot, and then try to book an appointment, all with no human contact. And what I find is that that process is not as effective as getting a lead and then having someone dedicated to follow up with that lead within 12 to 24 hours. So what's been your experience with that scenario?
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I think if you're a gigantic, I mean, really, if you're a chain, I think you could afford to do more of that automation. Mm-hmm. But if you got just a couple locations, I would say you want to you have that human touch and be as personal as you can. And I just think as time goes on, as voice is more, gets more mainstream, and it's the AI and all that kind of stuff, the one that is the most human, that's the most relatable, I think that's going to be the ones that take off. Like, we're going to crave that because everything's going to be not that.
Yeah. Yeah, like today, like a perfect example, I had to call the insurance company for a question about some insurance benefits for one of my employees. And I've called 3 times and yet to get a definitive answer. And most of the time I get into that, the digital number maze, press 1, press 2, whatever, or I get some person who barely speaks English. I know nobody can relate to that. But so I think it's really important to have some kind of process where there's a human being interacting with that. And it could be as simple as you get a lead through the website and somebody picks up and calls right away. And if they don't get through, because nobody answers their phone from a number they don't recognize. Yeah. So you leave a voicemail, say, hey, this is so-and-so from Catalyst. I saw that you were interested. And it's no harm in calling them because they've already raised their hand to say they're interested. So it's your obligation to follow up with them. And then leave a voicemail, say, hey, I know you're busy, so I'm going to, if I don't hear back from you, I'm going to call you back. Eric Russell, who's on the show, has a whole process built around this. And then that way, when you call them back, they see the number for the second time. They've heard your voicemail. They're like, oh, this is the guy from Catalyst or the girl from Catalyst. And so they pick up the phone, and then you just go from there. But you mentioned several times like voice search.
Yeah.
How is that different than physically typing in the search?
Let me backtrack 1 second. I want to hit on the what you're just talking about with having the process. So this client that I have, Applies Studio New York, we are working on a new client special and a landing page for it. And what we're going to do is the user that's filling that out is going to select how they want to sign up. So it's, do you want us to call? Do you want the studio to call you back? Do you want to call us? Do you want the studio to email you? Or you can sign up through MindBody. Well, we're giving those options, and then my client, the studio, will have regardless of what selection they make, they're going to have that information so they can follow up. So you're Joe Smith, and you go in there and say, hey, I will call the studio. I'll just call them right now. Well, you submit your information, and then life happens, and 10 minutes goes by, and you forget about it, and you don't call. Now she can follow up and make that connection. So I'm curious to see, or when to launch in the next week or two, I'm curious to see how that plays. But trying to be as flexible and kind of give the user their discretion, because you really don't know. They could be they're at work and right about to jump in a meeting, and they can't call you. They want to, but they can't. So I'm interested to see how it plays. With the voice, that just means that people are using their phone to talk into it and put their search query in that way. And so there may be like a longer tail search because they're gonna type out a sentence, or they're gonna say a sentence versus they may not type that sentence. So they may just type in personal trainer near me or personal trainer Baltimore, but then they may have a longer string that they're actually talking when they're searching with their voice.
So then it has it's not as specific.
Well, it's just that like it could end up giving you different results.
Okay, gotcha.
If you're typing in something, so it's still new. So I'm interested as well where that plays into the whole mix, but it's definitely gaining traction and more people are doing the voice, voice to text or
voice to search.
Yeah.
And then, so how does that change the SEO, if at all?
I think right now it's still status quo. It's still tried and true. And I wouldn't have a real good answer on that right now, but I think as we go further, it'll become more apparent.
Okay, gotcha. All right, interesting. All right, so now we're talking about inserting the, or like you were talking about putting the options there for
follow-up, really.
For follow-up, yeah, or how clients or leads want to be contacted. But there's another benefit to that. So like if you're able to capture lead through the website and capture the information, then you can use that information to build a retargeting list. So people who have said, been interested enough to give you their information, but they haven't pulled the trigger yet, which is extremely common. So then you can use that to retarget them through emails, correct? So that's another way to get some leads.
Emails could be one. You can also retarget on different websites or Facebook, and it'll show, an ad. And then that can be really powerful because they've obviously, like you said, they've shown interest. They just haven't pulled the trigger. So it's just kind of another touch point, a gentle reminder, and they see you enough and they're like, yeah, okay, I need to now. I need to get on board.
Yeah, I gotcha. Okay, that makes total sense. And then what were some of the other things? I mean, because you had a whole list that you were telling me as far as like websites. What are some we talked about? Not knowing your demographic, too long, too wordy of descriptions. Too complicated page where they don't. It's like looks like Times Square, and they don't know what to click or what to do. But they're entertained. They're just not giving you any money. So, what are some of the other pitfalls that you see fitness studio owners making when they come to you for websites?
I would say a lot of the time, whatever they have built has stayed the same for many years, and whether they're reluctant to change or they are trying other marketing tactics and they haven't invested in the website, a lot of times it's pretty stale and stagnant, and it's time for a rebuild, and it was time 2 years ago, and it's just that seems to be what I see as as old and outdated.
Okay. So what is the lifetime? That's an interesting point because what is the lifetime of a website? I mean, like before you need like a total overhaul.
Yeah, I would say the average is probably 5 years.
5 years, okay.
That was when we were at my dad's agency. That was always kind of the sweet spot. But I would say if it's done correctly, you can always just keep improving it. There's no need to redesign it.
Okay.
Because you already have that foundation laid. You're just improving it. To go back on the question that you just had, the other issue that I see with it being old or stale is that they're not in WordPress. They may be using a do-it-yourself platform like a Wix, a Weebly, a Squarespace. So the problem there is that that's going to end up becoming very limiting, and they're going to have to redesign it in WordPress to get the different functionality and features that they want. So I always tell people, even if you can't afford my service or another designer's service, do your best to start in WordPress because you can build off of that versus essentially having to redesign it twice, for one website. And then if it's done correctly from the start in WordPress, then you just keep building on it. You don't necessarily need to completely revamp things.
Okay. So that's interesting. So what are the advantages of WordPress over like a Wix or a Squarespace?
They're just extremely limiting from a back end, not to get technical, but like
get technical because I want to know.
Like they really lock down the code, so they don't, as a designer or a developer, you don't have much wiggle room to do what you want. It's very templated, and so that's why they have it, because it's easy, and that's the whole marketing campaign. It's easy to get started, but at the end of the day, you want to have the scheduling, online payments and whatever else. Have a nice blog and do this or do that, and it just ends up not being the best long-term solution for your business.
So the WordPress gives you a little bit more options, a little bit more capability, broader ability to update the website as you go along, so you don't have to do that total overhaul every 5 years.
Yeah, and I always say it grows with you. Your business is going to evolve and grow with you. You're doing this service today, 2 years from now, you really have grown in this other area. You can easily change that, and it grows and evolves with you. And then, you don't need that overhaul because you've already done much of the late work.
Okay, gotcha. All right, so let's say you have somebody come to you who just opened a studio. Well, probably if they just opened a studio, they're not going to want. Well, let's talk about it. If they just opened the studio, they're not going to want to spend the money to pay you to build their website because they think, I just need a website. So let's reverse engineer that or kind of look at that from the other end. So when you just start out, you don't have any clients, or maybe you have the clients that you brought with you from wherever you were into your new studio. So in order to but you have a lot more expenses. You got rent, you got utilities, you got insurance. If you have employees, you got payroll, all of those things. So you have to start generating more clients. So you have to bring them into the business, and word of mouth referrals only goes so far. So that website, the Facebook, the social media, all of that has to be one thing. So why should somebody just starting out pay you to build their website instead of doing a Wix or a Squarespace?
I would say that I've found at the beginning stages, the cash flow isn't usually there to make it a smart business decision to invest. It's more I've seen a lot of, challenge, 8-week challenges or whatever, get people in the door, get that buzz going, get the cash flow. And, it's a year or two, you're feeling more stable, and then you can invest and really make that website work for you and be a really good marketing asset and tool.
Okay. Gotcha. So so if like somebody's starting out and they don't have a lot of cash and they're kind of bootstrapping it, then you think it would be a good idea to build like a Wix or a Squarespace just to kind of get it off the ground and get it up and running, and then run some promos and some challenges or whatever you want to do through there until your cash flow gets a little bit better, and then it's time to update that website.
Yeah, I would say so. It doesn't make sense to invest if you're not going to really put the mileage into it.
Okay.
If you're just going to create it and then let it sit there and do your other marketing stuff, it's not going to really work for you. It really makes sense to have it be part of that mix, and make sure that it's bringing you in the leads that you want.
Gotcha. So that's two interesting points. So one, when do you know, like if I'm a studio owner that's just starting out and I've built my website from Wix or Squarespace or wherever, and then I'm running these offers and business is growing, when do I know, or when should I update my website and why?
I would probably say that the 2 to 3 year window seems to be the sweet spot when it's what I've built to start. I've kind of outgrown that,
Mhm.
and I want to be able to make sure that I'm going to continually improve my online presence versus at the beginning where you're just trying to make it and you're doing everything you can, grinding away, and now you want to make sure that it's the asset that it should be. Um,
And if you want to add functions like online
yeah,
scheduling
scheduling
or
the
sign up
yep,
or online
yep,
store, things like that. Okay,
hmm
gotcha. That makes sense. And then the other thing that you mentioned is being able to track your marketing efforts. How can you, how can they do that through the web page?
Yes, you can use Google Analytics to be able to track and see, how long are people staying on my website. Um, how many page views is this? What's the bounce rate? Meaning, how quickly are they? Do they go? Bounce rate means they land on one page and then they leave that page without visiting any other sites. So there's a lot of metrics. Google Analytics is a monster in and of itself, but it allows you to really dive into the data, however deep or not you want to go.
So let's talk about that Google Analytics. And so I imagine there are levels. So when you're just starting out, what metrics should you pay attention to on Google Analytics? And then as you progress, what progressions do you want to pay attention to?
Well, I'll say this with the caveat that John, who does SEO that I work with, my partner, that he's more on the Google Analytics front.
Got it.
But I would say I'm always curious to see the bounce rate, and how well, I guess one with the time of the page, how much time are they spending, and two, the bounce rate's always interesting to know. Are they finding this useful, or are they just bolting right away? And I can guarantee you that website that I build compared to one that's time looking like Times Square, they're going to be bouncing out of there really, really quickly.
Okay, gotcha. So you want them to stay on the page and look at the other tabs and everything
Yeah,
else. Gotcha.
kind of leading through the journey like we were talking about.
Uh-huh. Yeah. And then so then you can use all of the information to know. I know for me, when I started out, it was a pretty basic web page. I don't even think there was a call to action on it, to be honest with you. And then we wanted to add some new features. We wanted to add like class schedules. We wanted to add online schedule, the ability to schedule online, and then a couple of other features. So that's when we decided to update our website. Is that something that you would recommend?
Yeah, I'd say that plays into that sweet spot that I was talking about.
Okay.
When you want to be able to offer that kind of functionality, and there's a lot of third parties that easily can integrate and can help. There are a lot of my clients who use MindBody
Uh-huh.
to be able to integrate the scheduling, the payments, and the whole kit and caboodle.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of others out there. If you are more the personal trainer, then there's some other ways that I would recommend going about it, that you wouldn't have to go that robust. But there's plenty of options out there, and they all seem to work they have the right stuff in place to work seamlessly on the website.
Okay. So it all depends on what you want your website to do.
Mhm.
Yeah. Gotcha. All right. And then let's wrap this up. See if we can wrap this up with a pretty bow. Like if you were going to rate or grade websites, what's an F? I should say, what's a D and what's an A?
Yeah, it's going to go back to a lot of things that we've talked about. So the D is the Times Square effect. There's so many bells and whistles. I have no idea what I'm looking at. I don't know where to go. I don't know what you want me to do. I'm seeing 10 buttons to click, flashing lights, and
12 different services.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
There's a lot of friction there.
Mm-hmm.
Versus the A is frictionless and allows them to easily take that action regardless of whatever device that they're on, and allow you to build up that those potential leads.
Okay.
And it feeds into your overall marketing process.
Gotcha. Okay. So simplicity is the key in making the call to action painfully obvious. Okay, good. I gotcha. All right. So, and then anything else that I forgot that we covered this morning?
I think we've hit it. I think we've
Okay.
hit it all.
Awesome, man. And I'm jealous. We're in St. Louis right now, where it's cold, overcast, and rainy, and this guy's getting ready to head to Orlando, Florida, for some much deserved time off to get his creative juices flowing. Because we were talking about float tanks and meditation and all of that stuff this morning. But all right, so now we come to my favorite part of every podcast, because this is where we get the best answers, and you're aware of this because you're helping me with the newsletter. So quick plug for me, shameless plug. CT is going to be helping create a newsletter that we're going to send out. So if you go to trainerjim.net, there should be a little pop-up box. If you want to get a newsletter, we're going to have announcements. We're going to have upcoming guests. And then from the month's previous guests, we're going to have links to video clips for the most successful failures and the biggest surprise in self-develop or development, professional personal development on there. So if you want all of that, if you want to get all of that in your email box, sign up for the email list and we will send it out to you. Or I should say CT is going to send it out to you. But so back to the show. So what has been your most, and I don't know if you've seen any of the podcasts because I just send you the information, but what has been your most successful failure? And by that, I mean, at the time, it seemed like a devastating loss that you weren't going to be able to recover from, that you were able to take life lessons from that you used to propel you to greater success down the road.
Yeah, I would just say personally, losing my dad when I was 28, that gives you a perspective on life that you can't get otherwise without going through that. Life is so short. We were talking about it. I'm extremely particular with the clients that I take on to make sure we're the right fit. And then it's things that I learned from dad along that way. From a business sense, being my own boss, you create that plan. You think it's going to go this way, and then you have to pivot, and just staying on your toes and trusting the process and seeing it through.
Yeah, I think so many valid points. I think losing your father, and I don't think the age matters, because I know I lost my dad about the same time that you lost yours, but I was much older. But for me, the biggest loss was I still found myself for like a year saying, I got to ask dad about that. Oh, I can't, and just then feeling that loss all over again, and it's just hard to describe if you haven't been through it, just the void that leaves. So yeah, that's a great point. And then the other thing was, we were talking about the 80-20 rule, where 20% of those clients create 80% of your headaches, and sometimes your best option is just show them out the door. Maybe they'll be happier or unhappy, but not in your space, and you'll be a lot happier if you can find clients who aren't like that. So I agree with you on that. And then, like, since you've started your own freelance web development, what are some of the pivots that you had to make that you didn't think you would have to?
Yeah, when I started out, that first year I was just general web guy, really.
Mm-hmm.
And like we talked about, when you can help everybody, you help nobody, because you don't stand out. I'm just in this big ocean with a bunch of other web designers that are going to charge a third of what I'm going to charge. And how do I differentiate? And at first, I'm going to have to niche. And then I said, okay, I'm going to do the fitness space. I live the lifestyle. It's a great fit that way. Okay, I'll do personal trainers, because most of them don't have a website. Well, what took me a while to realize was that they didn't have a website and they couldn't invest in the website, because most of them are just doing it on the side. Mm. And so I needed to come to the realization that I needed to work with established fitness businesses that truly wanted to grow and have the mindset to take things to the next level, and not just, okay, this has been working, I'm just going to stay here. and not invest.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and then those trainers that are doing it on the side, there's no other way. You got to jump in. If you wanted to do it full time, you got to jump in with both feet. You got to take that leap of faith. But until they do, they can kind of build their own websites to help build their business. And then once they take that leap of faith and jump in and start running a business, then they can come see you to build that website.
There's nothing wrong with doing it on the side.
Yeah.
It's just for what I'm doing, it wasn't the right fit.
Yeah, and it all comes down to what you want to do, because there's some people, some trainers that they don't want to own their business. They just want to train. I did that for 20 years. And then there's some people that want to do it on the side. So it all depends on what you do. But if you do want to jump into the business space and own your own studio, then you want to be informed and you want to be successful. So you have to do some of these things. All right. So great answer. So my next question is, in your time working in the fitness industry on the web design space, what has been the biggest surprise that you've had to deal with?
I think it's been the mindset of I'm pushing the website away, because that's a complete opposite of how I've grown up.
Mm-hmm.
So to be able to, I'm kind of seeing it from both sides. And that's just been a change for me, because I was always like that. That's just been my headspace. My perspective is that it's super important and we can do this, that, and the other thing. But it just is not, it hadn't been as top of mind as I thought every industry should be.
Uh-huh.
So
like when you say push it away, you mean they kind of push it on, they don't see it as important?
Correct. Let's just do the Facebook ads. Let's just do the ClickFunnels.
Okay.
And I'm not saying that stuff doesn't work, but I just believe it should be part of the mix instead of the whole mix. Like we talked about before, that gets shut down, then where do you go from there?
Right. Well, and who was it? I was talking to somebody or reading something the other day, and it might have been, I attribute it to a lot of Tim Lyons because he's my go-to guy on a lot of this stuff. But he's like, what if, like, Facebook doesn't allow cigarettes to be advertised on Facebook? So what if that happens to fitness? You know, it's already happened to the before and after. I mean, if you have any like before and after, if you have anything that says fat loss, weight loss, that's not getting cleared. I mean, so you have to be like a wordsmith when you're putting together your copy to get an effective ad on Facebook. So what happens when all of that gets shut down? Then where do you go? You know, but you can still do it through your website. You can write a blog and then, you know, post like just chunks of the blog and link it back to your website where you have your offer. Yeah. Okay. That's interesting because they don't see it because everybody's focused on social media. Interesting. And I really do believe that social media has made people lazy in that they want to automate everything or DM me or message me or book your appointment online, and they've lost the understanding of the importance of that connection of calling somebody, talking to them on the phone, getting them in front of you. Because if you get somebody who clicks on your call to action and then they book an appointment and then they come in and sit in front of you face to face, the chances of them joining are significantly higher than if they just did it all online. You know, then they come in and you have no clue who they are. Oh yeah, I booked online. Oh, okay, what's your name? You know, all of this stuff. But so I really do think that human interaction, that human relationship, that rapport, and that action of calling somebody needs to be reinserted into the sales process. And then I think your sales process will be much more effective.
Yeah, technology can grow exponentially, but regardless of where it goes, we as humans still want that connection.
Okay. And my last question, and I know part of your answer on this, but where do you go for your personal and professional development?
Yeah, so I'm huge on Brendan Burchard.
Okay.
A big fan of Brendan.
So what is his work? Because I've heard another guest mention him.
Yeah, so he's in the personal development space.
Okay.
and he has a book that came out maybe 2 years ago called High Performance Habits.
Okay.
How extraordinary people become that way, and that's one that I recommend often, and it's a foundational read for me and gives a lot of tactical information. It's all scientific based, but gives that it's not just a rah-rah motivational thing. It gives concrete examples and how to apply it to your life, and that's what I'm all about.
Okay. And so what are some of the high performance habits that you've incorporated since becoming familiar with Brendan Burchard?
One I think is really planning out your day. He talked about, if you are just in your head, hey, here's what I'm going to do, versus you actually are writing it in your calendar, and just the difference in the amount of work that you can get done. Another thing, I'm not sure if it's from him or somebody else, but just to chunk my time. Oh, 1 week, very early on when I started the business, I had one meeting on every single day, Monday through Friday, on each of those days. And I was like dead by Friday. To have all of my energy, like I'm focused on those days, on that call or that meeting, versus being able to chunk it and just know, okay, Tuesday 1 to 5, I got this. Just from a brain power sense and my own energy, I wasn't completely sucked of all the energy. And so just figuring out ways to, when do I work best, and what times work best for what, and so like I like trying to get the workout done in the morning, so then I can just get down to work, and I know if I leave it till the afternoon, I'm just not going to do it.
Yeah, that makes total sense, because then it helps you pace your day out from a physical and mental effort standpoint, because if you know, okay, I got to do a sprint here, but then I can rest here before I got to do another sprint here, then that gives you mentally a time to like recharge. You're going to have that break versus just like pedal to the metal all day long, and then at the end you're like,
you're just crashing.
Exactly. Yeah, that makes total sense. All right, so what else do you do for your personal and professional development?
Yeah, that's it. Right now I'm big on Brendan. Like business wise, I like Gary Vee.
Okay.
I'm sure a lot of people have heard of him and follow his stuff. We were talking today. I've been into Shark Tank a little bit lately. So Barbara Corcoran, she has her own podcast called Business Unusual, and just really bite-sized pieces. And also, like we were saying, regardless of the type of business, you can always take XYZ and figure out how it applies to all businesses.
Yeah.
So I
take the basic concept and then apply the nuances of whatever your niche is. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'd say those are three right now that I'm focusing on, and okay. I'm just all about. I want tactical information. I don't want the rah-rah motivational stuff that wears off tomorrow.
Right.
I really want to be able to take something and apply it and see it through. It's all about the consistency, and that's why I think it relates so much to the fitness space, because it's just, if you work out once a week for a year, the results that you would see, versus if you were consistent 3 days a week. It's really just the consistency is huge in whatever you're doing.
Right. Yeah. Versus 1 day a week for a year versus 5 days a week for a month. Yeah, exactly. Your results are going to be much more significant. And then you also mentioned, we were talking a little bit about meditation and float tanks. You care to share that with the listeners?
Sure. Yeah. No, could not be more into floating and the benefits. From my standpoint, I just like it from the creativity and a reset is the way I think about it. Just recalibrates my day. But I've seen some of the research that they did the effects. They wanted to try to quantify the effects of floating and how much longer it lasted after you got out of the tank. And I'm forgetting the exact number, but it was somewhere between like 24 to 32 hours, I think. Post float, you were still feeling the effects. And that's just insane compared to any. That was specifically for anxiety patients, and so their anxiety was reduced for that amount of time, and that's just crazy compared to any other modality or medication that they could take. So there's nothing. That was the last float conference I heard that from in 2019. But I've been doing it for about a year and a half, and I tell everybody about it.
Yeah, and it's and I was sharing with you that I did it once, and I was like, meh, and you're like, yeah, if you do it once, it's like working out once, right? What kind of benefits are you going to see? That you might get a little sore. I got a little wet but other than that, but it's something that you have to at least commit to doing maybe 3 to 5 times before you can say
before you make a judgment.
Before you make a judgment, yeah, exactly. Because again, it's about the consistency. And then we were also talking about meditation, and I was sharing with you that Ivan, who's my part-time CFO too, he's a unique guy. He's a very smart guy, but he turned me on to this Isha Kriya meditation from this old yogi dude. And I did it. I committed to doing it every day for a year, and I lasted about 13 months. But you use something different. You want to share that with listeners?
Sure. Yeah, I use an app called Headspace.
Okay.
So there's a couple others out there that are like it, and it's a guided meditation. You can pick anywhere from I think 5 to maybe an hour. I forget the time frame, but kind of whatever works for you. And I like having that versus people just think of meditation as you're in your room and in a pretzel position, so it can kind of work for you however you would like. And so a lot of people do it in the morning, but like we were talking about, I've done it at night, and that seemed to work for me. So it really just depends on the person. The other thing I would say on the personal development podcast called Finding Mastery, it's by Dr. Michael Gervais. I'm a big Seattle sports fan, and he is the sports psychologist for the Seahawks.
Okay.
And so that's how I got turned on to him. And then he's had podcasts for a while, and huge fan.
Okay. All right. I'll have to check both of those out. And then going back to the meditation, we were talking about how it was really hard for me to turn my mind off. Like meditation was like, this meditation doesn't work because I can't get my mind to shut up. But then the more I did it, the easier it became. And so I did that Isha Kriya, which is about a 20-minute guided meditation every day for like 13 months. And now what I find, and I had to like set aside a chunk of time, tried to do it in the morning. Sometimes I would have to do it at night like you. But now what I find is that I do that same process when I meditate. I repeat the same mantra and then go into the meditation. But now that I did it for that long, I can drop into it anywhere. So I like to get to jujitsu early. I lay on the mats, I meditate, then I warm up. Or sometimes I'll do it in my office. I'll do it at the hockey rink. I'll do it at random times. But now I'm able to kind of drop into that space a lot quicker because I built up that practice. Do you find that to be true too?
Yeah, I was just saying it's like building up muscle.
Yeah.
And you're able to use it in that way. That's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So all kinds of good stuff. All right, CT, man. Well, thanks a lot. And where can people get in touch with you, find out more about you, reach out to you if they want your help or if they have questions or anything like that?
Yeah, my website is ctkaupp.com. We'll link it up in the show notes. You can email me directly, contact@ctkaupp.com. And I have a free website analysis and review. And so we can jump on a call and kind of go through where your website is right now and where it could go.
Awesome. I highly recommend him. He's not cheap, I'll tell you that, but he does great work. I mean, just look at my website. I'm really, really thrilled with it. And then the template that you put together for the newsletter is pretty dope too. So CT, man, thanks a lot. And we will definitely be in contact and definitely have you back on the show sometime for sure. So thanks for coming on the show. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for listening, guys.